a Kentucky grand jury has decided to charge one of the officers involved in the Breonna Taylor case, but they did not charge him for her death. Of the three officers involved, Brett Hankison, Miles Cosgrove, and Jonathan Mattingly, only one of them, Hankison, was indicted by the grand jury on 3 counts of wanton endangerment. The Kentucky Attorney General found the officer showed extreme indifference to human life. Bail was set at $15,000 cash. Taylor, a 26-year-old EMT, was shot and killed by police in her home during a raid back in March. Today, Kentucky's Attorney General Daniel Cameron said her death was a tragedy, but the rule of law must apply.
The decision before my office as the special prosecutor in this case was not to decide if the loss of Ms. Taylor's life was a tragedy. The answer to that question is unequivocally yes. The success of our legal system is predicated on the principle that the accused is innocent until proven guilty. Despite passions, opinions, and desire for every detail to be known, the rule of law must apply.
Sadiqa Reynolds joins me now. She's the president and CEO of the Louisville Urban League. Sadiqa, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
What is your reaction after hearing the Attorney General explain details of the investigation, some of which are new? The public had not yet heard some of these details.
I think that many of the things he talked about are questions for a jury, not something that should be presented to a grand jury. I think it's important for us to remember that Kenny Walker, the boyfriend in this case who was in the house with Breonna and fired the weapon, he was indicted within 2 minutes. It took less than 3 minutes for a grand jury to indict him. That's the way the grand jury process works in America. You get a little bit of information, you move forward, and then people have the right to their defense when they get to the jury trial. In this case, you have a grand jury that listened to evidence. It sounds like for the last couple of days, they heard inconclusive evidence. If you listen to the words that the Attorney General used, he said that the question of whether Hankinson's bullet landed in the body and all that was inconclusive. The question of whether or not the officers announced themselves, he said that there was one person who, and he did hear the officers announce themselves. But what he didn't tell us is that there were multiple witnesses who did not hear police announce themselves. And in fact, the one that did say he heard the officers announce themselves is someone who was upstairs and outside and had to be interviewed and questioned several times before he actually said he heard them say police. The other thing is there were neighbors who called 911 to say, we need the police to come here. Somebody is shooting. So there were plenty of people who say they did not hear any announcement from police. So the contradictions, those things, those questions of fact, that is exactly what a jury should be deciding, not a grand jury. So in Kentucky, in Louisville, Kentucky, we are very Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, what message do you think these charges are sending to the community there?
Oh, the message is clear that Black life still does not matter. And I think it's important for people to understand something. Louisville is not looking at this case in some sort of vacuum, in some sort of silo, as if we are disconnected from the rest of America. It is this country that taught us in the Trayvon Martin case what stand your ground meant. So we understand that now. So we shouldn't be certainly critical of Kenny Walker. You have to understand that Louisvillians are viewing this case through the lens of our pain with our brothers and sisters in other places in this country. We have learned from America what justice looks like for other people, but we cannot seem to have it ever applied in our case. I thought it was interesting, too, that the Attorney General made a reference to, there will be some who want revenge. Well, that has not been the case for most of these protesters, for these peaceful protesters who have walked through the streets of our city. They have not demanded revenge. What they have asked for is justice. They have asked for the same justice system that would let Kenny Walker's case be indicted in less than 2 minutes. That same justice system should have worked for those police officers in the same way. That's what we're talking about. We want justice to be equally applied. And that's what we do not see in this country, and we're not seeing it in this city and in this state.
And you mentioned the protesters. There have been over 100 nights of peaceful protests in Louisville since the death of Breonna Taylor. What do you expect tonight, and what is your message to demonstrators who are already in the streets as we speak?
My message to demonstrators in the street right now is that I understand your pain. And you all know I am with you. This is horrible. This is not what we deserve. But we do have to be here to go on tomorrow. I think that Louisville, Kentucky has set this city up to sacrifice many of us. And we have to be very, very careful that we don't fall into any trap and end up in a situation where any one of us is not here tomorrow to continue to demand justice, because it is what we have always said it was. It is about police reform, but it is about justice throughout the system. It is about equity in housing and affordable housing. It is about closing the achievement gap. There are so many other issues that we are taking on as we march through these streets in Louisville. So I want this city to know we are disappointed. Our hearts are broken. We are in pain. It is not the first time, but let us work together to make it the last time. Let's push for consequences for elected officials who have not done what we needed them to do. We need them to be responsive to our pain. And again, we are not asking for any separate justice system. What we want people to understand is this is the system that we have. And you allow 2 days of testimony, both sides, everything, contradictory or not, when it comes to a police officer and certain people with privilege in this country. But when it's just a regular black guy who gets up and goes to work every day, you go in, you take him, you back him out of his apartment, you make him walk backwards, you talk to him like he is less than a man, and then you take him and you indict him and you lock him away for months until the community demands that he be set free. We are tired of that. We want the same kind of justice that other people get in this country. That is all we have ever asked for, not revenge. We don't want revenge. We could never pay back all of the pain and suffering that has been lumped on us. All we want is starting today, starting tomorrow. Let us have justice like you would be afforded, like white Americans, like privileged Americans would be, like police officers are afforded. And to be clear, nobody in Louisville hates every police officer. That is not how we feel. They, in some cases, are our family members. That we just simply want the law to be applied the same way, regardless of your zip code or socioeconomic status. We see that there's a different application of law when it comes to us.
Now, do you think it's significant that Daniel Cameron, the Kentucky Attorney General, would not reveal the makeup of the grand jury? I mean, I know grand juries are meant to remain secret, but in a case like this, you know, the racial makeup of the grand jury could be important, could be significant. He would not reveal that. He said, of course, I am black. But is that enough for you? Would you like to know a little bit more about who were the men and women making this decision?
I would like to know more, but to be quite frank with you, you know what you need to know by the office that presented the case. Lawyers often joke that a ham sandwich could be indicted. It is so easy to get an indictment. And in this case, the officer who was indicted is the one officer who also has some other allegations of sexual abuse and assault. pending. There are allegations here in Louisville against Brett Hankison. We will see how that goes. So really, he was an easy target, so to speak. Prosecutors know how to present cases to get indictments. Let me tell you, I am an attorney. I was a defense attorney. I have served this city as a judge, and getting an indictment is not a hard thing to do. I'm not sure anybody believed that Mattingly was going to be indicted. You understand, once he was fired on, that there were going to be consequences for that, even though we are in a stand your ground state, right? We've learned what stand your ground means. And if you don't know who's coming in, you have the right to fire. That's why it's so important, the comment that Cameron makes about that one person who says, oh, they heard them say it was a police officer. But talk to us about the 11 other people, the multiple other people that didn't. That's what we're not talking about. And I understand that we may not have every single fact out today, but we want to know why their grand jury process looked different than Kenny Walker's. That's what Louisville is saying right now.
Sadiqa Reynolds, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time.